1940, Belgium. The Germans have invaded, and many people are, because of their religious beliefs, are forced to flee the Nazis. Tonight's keynote speaker lived that story. Tonight you will share her story of her and her family's flight from Belgium, flight from the Nazis. Please help me welcome our keynote speaker, Dina Klayman, escaping to freedom in the eye of the hurricane. Please help me welcome Dina Klayman. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you need a chair.
Just move the chair in the center. Old age. Just for your information, I'm almost 90 years old.
Whoa!
You're older than me.
Huh?
I'm only 87, so you're older than me.
I told you, yeah. Escape to freedom through the eye of a hurricane actually came from a friend of mine who listened to the story and realized this is actually what we did, was escape to freedom. So on May the 10th, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the first bomb fell. I come from Belgium. Actually, I come from Brussels. And we lived about 20 miles from the airport. And the first bomb fell in the airport. Shook the house. My father all got us into the basement. And he said, we have to leave. And it happened to be a Friday night, a Friday morning, and it was Mother's Day. And I had made a special present to my mother, a needlework point. And I had packaged it with a bow and lily of the valley and everything, and I was heartbroken when I was told that I was not going to school. I wasn't going to be able to give it to her, and forget it, and you're leaving this afternoon. Came home at lunchtime and he said, I've got 3 tickets to go to Paris, leaving at 4 o'clock on the last train to Paris. Now the train trip is 3 hours. But we left at 4 and we didn't get to Paris until after midnight. And that's because the train, the Germans were shooting at all the people who were escaping on the road, and the German planes were shooting at them. And so the train conductor decided that he wasn't going to take a chance, and he knew how many tunnels there were in between. And so he would push the train as fast as he could to a tunnel, and then wait until he knew there were no more airplanes, then he would shoot the train again to another tunnel. And that's why the trip took so long. My father stayed home because he felt that he could help the Belgian army. However, he was 40 years old and they said, you're too old. And he was heartbroken, but he had to help his friends. So he knew Belgium like the back of his hand. And he used to take caravans at night of cars, taking them to France. Every night he did that. And on the 22nd of May, his secretary came. They were at a board meeting. His secretary whispered in his ear that 20 minutes from here you better go. And he knew that he had been told that it was number 2 on the most wanted SS list. So he knew he had to leave. So here's a car that he drove, a stretch limo, not to be noticed, of course. It wasn't blue, it was black. And he put a mattress on the roof of the car, and he drove the little roads to get to Paris, and he got to the north part of Paris, and they had gates all the way around Paris. And he approached the gate, and the guard told him that no Belgian cars were allowed to come into Paris. And we were picked up by a friend of his when we were out in Paris. The next morning he came and he said, I'm going to put you in a B&B. You're not to get out of that B&B ever until he gets here. So for 10 days we stayed, 12 days we stayed in this B&B without being able to get out. And he said the reason is because we don't know the German spies, they may pick you up, then they'll get to him. So we waited. We had news of what was happening because this man would come and tell us every day. And finally on the 22nd he arrived. And what happened at the gate was the guy said you can't go in this way. So my father was very astute, and he said to the guards, but how do other people get in? He said they come in through the south gate. Oh, he said, thank you very much. Went around, came in through the south gate. And he knew where we were staying, and we were waiting outside for him. We didn't recognize the car because he had managed to put a mattress on top of the car because if the planes were shooting bullets, the bullets would get stuck in the mattress. And so, but he only brought a raincoat and his toothbrush. He didn't bring anything else. And that night, he was extremely tired. And he had dinner, went to bed. Next morning, 8 o'clock, he said, we're leaving, right now. And in the meantime, he had brought another couple who didn't have a car. So there were 6 of us in the car. But this limo he had built seats for us to sit in between the back seat and the front. So they collapsed, but then we were able to sit in that terribly comfortable. Anyway, we drove that next day, and we arrived in Bordeaux. I brought a map, several maps, if you pass them around. And we arrived in Bordeaux, and he thought that was where we were going to stay. And we had just gotten into a small hotel on the outside of the city, and the prior of the town announced that all Belgian citizens had to go to a certain town in France. And my father said, I'm not going there, that's a trap. And so he looked at the map and he found this little health resort within the same circle where this large town was. And he said, we're going to stay there. And we were the only Belgians in that little town. Little town couldn't be more than 1 street long. And it had one hotel, a health hotel, with a spa and everything. We stayed 1 night in a hotel, and he said, too expensive. Rented 2 rooms in the house with kitchen privileges, and that's where we stayed. Until France fell, the end of June. And in the meantime, the mayor of this little town decided that he wanted the batteries out of the car. I don't know for what reason. So they took all the batteries out of the car, and my father went to the mayor when France fell, he said, what good are the batteries? They're going to be dead. Nobody can use the cars. So the mayor said, that's a good idea. You can have your battery back. My father put the battery back in the car and started the car. Next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, we were on our way. We had to go to Marseille, which was like a day's trip, almost a day's trip. And no gas, of course. So he said, don't worry about the gas. And as we get out of the town, he found a butcher shop that had a gas pump on the front. So he stopped there and he went to the butcher shop and he said, I need gas. And the guy said, you have coupons? He said, don't worry, let me just pump the gas. Then I'll give you the coupons. Pumped the gas into the car, walked back in, gave him extra money, took off. We arrived in Marseille and he decided that with this big car, we were really a target. And so in the low-income district, he found an apartment, one-bedroom apartment for the 4 of us. And I mean low income. Now you have to realize that we were upper middle class in Brussels. So this was coming down to the nitty-gritty. And he had a friend who knew an American who used to be an aide to Roosevelt. And he kept saying to Roosevelt, you need to let the Jews in. And Roosevelt said, leave me alone. And he gave Roosevelt a really bad time, and Roosevelt sent him to Marseille. And this man, by the name of Olson, decided that if Roosevelt wasn't going to do it, he was going to do it. And he got the right people in France to give exit visas to the Jews who wanted to leave. The professors and the important people, 3,700 people he let out amongst us. There were 6 in our car, 7 in the other car, and we got a visa. And the day we were supposed to leave, like the end of August, and sometime around the 20th of August, my father got a postcard that said, how much did you pay for your exit visa? And did you change my brother's age because he was going to be of military age? My father took the postcard and looked at it and he said, you know how many people read this postcard? Open postcard? And he said, we didn't get this postcard, did we? And took a match, burned it, flushed it down the toilet, and never got the postcard. He immediately went to the friend and said, we're leaving tomorrow morning, which was a Saturday. We arrived at the border around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the guard said, there's too many of you. I can only let 25 people through, and I've already let more than you have, so you have to come back tomorrow. So we turned around and went to the little village near the border, and as we drove into the village, all we could see were the German boots, the black boots, the SS boots. So the thing was to hide the cars, and every family went to a different hotel, little hotels they have. And we bought some bread, and we said we're leaving 3 o'clock in the morning before those Germans get up. And we left at 3, we were at the border before 6 a.m. He could let us all through. We got in between the no man's land between France and Spain, and they put all the money and the jewels and everything in the car doors because they thought it was the safest thing to do. To arrive at the border in Spain, they said, we're confiscating the cars because you need to leave $400 deposit for the cars, for each car, 2 cars. And this was Sunday. And of course the bank is closed. So the guards thought they were going to steal whatever we had in the cars. So my father said, this isn't going to work. So the man decided to stay around with the guards, to play cards, to tell jokes, to do all kinds of things. And one of the things he did was, he was wandering around, and all of a sudden we had a certain word we had devised when we were at the beach. We would scream so that we would know where is somebody. So all of a sudden I hear this word and I look and there he is and he's doing this and I come up to him and he's in the bushes. And he said, so I went to him and he said, no, you do exactly what I tell you to do. Okay, and he put this girl between him and I, locked arms, started singing, and we walked past the guards, all 3 of us, down into the village. He gave the girl money. She was a Jewish girl who had a knapsack on her back, and she was trying to escape, and she didn't have an exit. That was the first lesson I learned about my father, that he was protecting as many people as he could. So the next morning we go to the bank. Sure enough, we deposit the $400. Now we're on our way through Spain, and the first town it gets, the sun goes down. Now we have to sleep. And my father says, I don't know where we can sleep. It's really dangerous. There are a lot of bandits going around. This was right after the revolution with Franco, and there were a lot of Germans around, and it was very dangerous. And so he went to the police station, and the police station said, you stay here. We'll put your car at the police station, close the gate, and you sleep at the police station. And that's what we did for 4 days. Now we're on our way towards Madrid, and we were to meet the other car in Madrid. They had a bigger car, and they didn't have as much luggage as we had, and they could go ahead. And we climbed this mountain, get to the top, and the fan belt breaks.
Oh, no.
And my father tried his belt, and it didn't work, and he got back in the car, and he said, let's pray it's downhill all the way. And it was downhill all the way. You could have heard it fly. We got there, siesta time, so the little village was closed. We had to wait until 3 o'clock in the afternoon until the car mechanic came in. And luckily he had a fan built and it fit the car, and we were on our way. We get to Madrid, and now we're so relieved from the whole thing. My father decides to stop the car, and he said, let's get some coffee. We need to take a breath. We get out and we sit at the table, and next to us is a man sitting all in black with a black felt hat on his head. And we didn't notice him, but he approached my father, and he said, where are you going? And my father said, we're going to Portugal. We have a Belgian license plate on this car with luggage on the roof. So the guy said, really? So he engaged in talking, and then he paid for the coffee. We all got back in the car, and this man said, "I'll help you drive through Madrid." So he whistles, and 4 motorcycles show up. One in front, one in the back, 2 on each side, and his car, a black car in front. And he leads the way, and all of a sudden he stops. And we think, oh my God, now what? And he gets out and he said, "I want you to see our museum, the Lido Museum," which was the biggest thing. So we all went out to look, and we got ourselves, what do we need a Lido Museum? Anyway, he left us, he took us through Madrid, and then he waved us goodbye, and the motorcycles went away, and that was the end. And we started on the road, and they had every so many kilometers they would stop to check the paper. So we slowed down for the first one, and the guy said no. And we stopped for the second one, the guy said no, and my father said, "This is a trap if I ever known one." And he said, "Third one is going to get it. I'm going to find out what it's all about." Now, he didn't speak Spanish, he only spoke French. And they speak Spanish. So, pig language, whatever it was, he mentioned to the guy that he was thirsty, and they drink wine out of a goat thing. And the guy, and my father pointed that he wanted, the guy showed him, and then led us through. And it was almost time to decide what to do about sleeping, and he drove to the police station right away. The guy said, "You stay here." In the morning we left. Now we were almost on the border of Portugal. We got to the border of Portugal, and before we got to Portugal, we stopped at the bank to get the $400 back. They didn't know what we were talking about. So, got back in the car, I went over the border, and our friends were waiting, and they said, "What happened to you?" So we had to tell them. So we had a meal together, and it was a very sumptuous meal. We hadn't really eaten in a week, and my mother was afraid it was going to be expensive. My father said, "Very, very, very expensive." And my mother said, "Did you have to eat it all?" And turns out it was really, really cheap. So now we're on our way to Lisbon. We arrive at Lisbon about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's only one hotel to stay in the center of Lisbon. So all 13 of us parade in there, and they have rooms, and it was really cheap. So after 3 days of so much food, which we couldn't eat, my father said, "No more." My mother said, "I don't want to stay here." So he found a rooming house with 2 rooms for us, and with kitchen privileges. It so happened she was a movie star on the downside and needed to make extra money. She was a very nice lady, and she had a very, very rich boyfriend. And it so happens it was a weekend, and he took us to show us Portugal at the time, Estoril. And then after 2 days, that house, my brother managed to put the curtains on fire. And my brother was 17, almost turning 18. And my father said, "We can't stay here." So he found an apartment in the poor area for all of us to stay. And everybody, all our friends found apartments. Nobody wanted a rooming house. Okay, so we stayed there, and he directly went to the Belgian consulate, and he said, "I want to send my car back." And he found some lady was going back to Brussels, and she took the car. Then he tried to get a visa to get out of Portugal because we were only allowed 5 months in Portugal, and after that we were thrown out. So, and the German spies were everywhere. You didn't know who was who. You really didn't know. So he went to the Americans, the consulate, and they said, no, you can't come to America because you're Polish descent. Actually, he was of Russian descent, but to get out of Russia, he changed his birthplace. But then when he came to Belgium, he thought, I'll never have to do this again. So he stayed Polish, so he couldn't get it. So went to the Canadian embassy. And they said, oh, sure, you can come, but you have to go see a Catholic priest to get a baptismal certificate. My father said, not on your life, I'm not going to do that. So the chairman of the board lived in America, so he sent him a wire to tell him what was going on. And the man wired back and he said, it took a little while, and then wired back and he said, okay, you've got a job in America, in New York, you have an apartment, you have a car, and you're going to earn, remember, 1941, you're going to earn $400 a month. That was a lot of money. And my mother was ecstatic. She was going to see her brothers who lived in America and everything was fine. And we had a first-class passage on an American ship leaving January the 12th. And then he said, and my father said, no, he's not going to America. I want to go to England. And he went to the British consulate and he said, I want to go to England. He said, I have an American immigration visa that was given to us on Christmas Day. The consulate had to come in and swear us and everything on Christmas Day. We weren't supposed to tell anybody because we had this. And the British said, okay, you're going to England. And they kept postponing and postponing. In February, my father went back and he wired back the man in New York and he said, looks like I'm not going to England. So the man wired back, he says, everything's back in line, you're going to America. He went with the papers to the British consulate. He said, I'm not lying, I'm telling you. Either you send me to England, or I'm going to America. To my knowledge, I didn't know this, but apparently the British government were in need of engineers, and all our friends were engineers. And so they wanted these engineers to come to England. So they said, cancel your trip to America, you're going to England. And it took 3 more weeks before they came. They said, okay, you're going. So they came and they said, pack your bags, we're going to pick them up. And then we'll come later and pick you up. So they came and they picked the luggage, and then 8 o'clock at night, another cab came, picked us 4 of us up, and halfway through the trip, the cab stopped. We had to get out and get into another cab. It took us to the airport, put us right on the tarmac. There was a hut on the tarmac. They put us in the hut. It was pouring rain. There was a hurricane going. And they said to us, now you don't get out of this thing until we tell you. And when we open the door, you run, and there's the plane. And we waited until after midnight. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was pitch black. And they opened the door, and we ran into that plane. And before my father was sitting down, they closed the door and they took off. We didn't know they took off in the eye of a hurricane. because there were two Norwegian pilots. It was a twin-engine plane that sent 9 people. 5 of them were Scotland Yard people, and 4 of us. There were 11 people altogether. And so we landed in England, and instead of landing at the airport, we landed in the fields, and there was a table set for people, and they questioned my father. They tried to break him down to speak other languages, and he said, "I don't understand what you thought."
Thank you.
And finally, they put us in a cab and took us to a B&B, and we didn't know at the time, but everything was reported. And luckily for my father, he said, "I am finally free." And the next morning, Scotland Yard guy comes and he said, "We're going to take the train to London." And we thought, okay. And then he said, "But when we get to London, you know the trains in England, they have compartments where you open one side of the door and you open the other, no corridors, just so." He said, "When we get to London, we'll open the door and you'll get into some kind of a police wagon." And we didn't know what he was talking about. We didn't speak English, so how did we know? And then we sat, and he said, "No, the man on this side, the women on that side." And the cab took us, dropped us off in a house. It was actually a woman's prison, held by the Royal Air Force women. And they took my father and my brother to Victoria School for Girls. And it was on a hill, and there were 3 guard stations. So you couldn't really escape from there. And luckily for my father, he walked in and saw his friend there, and his friend said, "We're lost, they're going to send us to the Isle of Man, we're not going to be able to do anything." My father said, "What's the problem?" "They're going to question you about everybody who's in your address book." He said, "Excuse me, I'm going to the bathroom." Went to the bathroom, ripped out all the pages out of that he couldn't remember whose name it was. Flushed him down the toilet. Sure enough, they questioned him. They questioned him for 4 days, 8 hours a day. They questioned my brother for 4 hours one day. And eventually, the women said, "You're leaving today." Okay, so they put us in a cab, and that's how I found out from the 3 guards that, and we got into Victoria School for Girls. And my father and my brother were waiting for us, and they took us into a room. And would you believe, in